Until now, we've worked with variables and functions, but we'll come to see that there's a better way to organize our code, which makes things easier for our minds to process. C++ allows us to group related variables and functions into objects. But in order to create an object, we first need to define a class. So the way we can define a class is, let's say I wanted to create a class that has information about books in general. So I can use the expression class, book, open curly braces, define variables that will be public or made available outside of this class. So I can use the expression public to say that everything I define is going to be accessible outside of the class. I'm going to define a variable, int number of pages, as well as int words per page equals 50. And I can have a string title of the book variable. And I can also define a function that returns an integer. So int calculate total number of words. This function is going to return number of pages times words per page. And this function that's within this class can access the variables number of page and words per page from that's already been defined in the class. So if I wanted to make use of this class, I can create an object. So what I'm going to do is remove this. I'm going to create an object using the class book. So I'm going to call our class book and create an object called my book. And I'm going to assign my book dot number of pages. So I'm going to assign the variable that's within my object, number of pages equals 13. And I want to calculate how many pages are in my book. So I can do cout my book dot. So I can use the dot notation to call the public variables in my object as well as public functions in my object. So cout my book, I'm going to call my function calculate total number of words and add a new line, keep it neat, and I'm going to run that. So just to highlight, the class object has to end with a semicolon. We print this out and we can see we've gotten the number 650 because 13 times our predefined variable words per page 50 is 650. So that's how we can define a class called book with public variables and public functions. And this is how we can define an object using the book class. So my book is an object, and we can access variable names using the dot notation as well as functions that are part of the class using dot notation.